This podcast is brought to you by the Albany Public Library main branch and the generosity of listeners like you. What is a podcast? God, Daddy, these people talk as much as you do. Razib Khan's Unsupervised Learning.
Thanks for listening to the ungated version of the Unsupervised Learning podcast. If you want to read some essays on some of these topics, please check out razib.substack.com. Again, that's razib.substack.com. Thank you.
Hey everybody, this is Razib with the Unsupervised Learning podcast, and today I am here with a returning guest, Zineb how do you say your last name again?
Riboua.
Riboua. Okay, so sorry, I'm not good with names. But you are a returning guest, and Zineb, you are with the Hudson Institute, and your bailiwick is basically, foreign policy, international relations. You do a lot of stuff about Africa, North Africa, but you have an interest in a lot of different things, and you have a Substack with it's your name, so it's easy to look up. ZinebRiboua.com, and you wrote some stuff about Zohran Mamdani and what his ideology is. And where it comes from, and how to understand him. And for the, I think most of the listeners will know who Zohran is, but just to give I'll give a quick potted, biography. His mother is, Mira, I think, Nair. She's a filmmaker. She's a filmmaker, and she's made some, pretty good independent and non-independent films. Pretty well known. His father is a professor at Columbia and post-colonial studies or something like that. So his mother is Indian. She's from a Punjabi Hindu background, and his father is Ugandan Indian. I think his family background is from Gujarat. They were Khojas, so it's a particular Islamic Muslim group. And so, he has that background. He was raised partly apparently in Uganda, I think. Moved to the United States when he was 7. He has, I think, dual citizenship still. He is naturalized American. And he grew up in New York for a lot of his adolescence, obviously. I think went to college at Bowdoin. It's a liberal arts school in New England. And kind of has, he's in his early 30s now, and he kind of led a peripatetic life. He didn't really find a career until relatively recently. He's an assemblyman now. He was trying to be a rapper, do other things like that. He helped his mom. He's a Nepo baby. He kind of admits it. And he's probably going to be the next mayor of New York. I guess I'm going to have to eat crow if he's not, because I am going to be posting this after the election. But I am pretty confident that he's going to win. And he is Democratic Socialist of America, although he is also running on the Democratic Party platform. And people have accused him of being of an Islamist, of a secret jihadi, doing taqiyya, also being a communist. So there's a lot of things that people say about him. I think partly it's because he has such a thin resume, and he doesn't have much of a background. He doesn't have much of a track record at all. So you wrote a couple of posts, Zohran Mamdani, Third-Worldism and the Algerian Revolution. And then Zohran Mamdani, Islam as Language and American Third-Worldism, which is the two are connected. And, I want to talk to you because they're really great. Everyone should read them. Really, everyone should read them. Because I think you brought together, because your background, you speak French, you know that literature. You're from Morocco. You studied in France. You're in America. You're an American now, I think, or you will be. And so you have a global perspective, and Zohran Mamdani is a global person. And I think we actually, as Americans, do not actually understand him appropriately, partly because, Americans, we're very parochial in our own way, and we only have a few categories and classes to understand people. So if you're a right-wing Republican, 20 years ago, it was oh, are you an Islamist? Are you a jihadi? Or you're a socialist? If you're, liberal, it's oh, that person's a white supremacist or a fascist. And, there are these buzzwords that people throw around. But Mamdani, your pieces persuaded me, and I kind of always thought that it's quite clear he's not a traditional Islamist. Like, first of all, he's not Sunni. So, that would be like a little weird. He's Shia. And secondarily, his wife looks like a upper middle class millennial American woman who doesn't cover her hair. And, so that doesn't make any sense. The democratic socialism of America, I mean, okay, like that to me, I thought closer to the mark in a way, but his background is he's clearly a Trustafarian, of that class of people. And I don't really know if he takes this class material interests as seriously as someone like Bernie Sanders, honestly.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's nuance and subtlety to get at his views, which I think your post did get at. Before you get into Zohran, can you talk about the Algerian Revolution actually a little bit, which I think a lot of people know partly from like some films, there've been films about it, but also like 15 years ago, people got interested in it because they were interested in guerrilla warfare and, revolution and, that sort of stuff. Talk about the Algerian Revolution and why it's important, because it kind of is actually.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me to speak about this. And yeah, so in my post, I actually did a deliberate attempt to talk about the Algerian Revolution, because whenever there is this mix of Islam and communism, or these type of adjacent ideologies, everyone talks to me about the Iranian Revolution, and I'm like, no, the Iranian Revolution, the Islamic Republic Revolution, is very different. It is explicitly a theological revolution, in the sense that it transforms how the Islamic world wants to think about governance, etc. Khomeini, he actually hates both the Soviets and the Americans, and so his project's actually very different. The Algerian Revolution, Algerian War of Independence, I mean, from 1954 to 1962, it was a very specific, I think, I said revolution in the sense that it did lead to an overhaul of how communists at the time were thinking about the future of the left. And I explained how the struggle between the French settlers as well as the Algerians who were Muslims at the time that were not integrated, etc. It actually led to a lot of intellectuals at the time who were off the left to seize the opportunity and to take advantage of whatever that was happening, to transform their view from the proletariat to the and the bourgeois to this greater, more global framework of anti-colonial resistance. Why? Because there were a lot of issues with the Soviet Union at the time. The Stalinists and Leninists, etc. They were very fragmented. But this thing, what happened in Algeria was really a kind of rebirth, in a sense that it equipped them with new language. It helped them have their own cause as French, as Frenchmen, and it's situated in a greater struggle. That's why I really talked about it. There's also something that I thought was very interesting that happened in the Algerian War of Independence, and it's the attempt to decolonize, to purify, and to absolutely condemn any imperial Western French project. And I think that it is a very important it's a very important point, and in the sense that you have that purification that is purely ideological, and I think that my point was that the Algerian War of Independence and intellectual revolution, it actually led to this anti-imperial intellectual group in France, to the point where it actually led to Charles de Gaulle to be condemned, and there were a lot of issues with the French Republic at the time. And then you get May 68, which is one of the one of the biggest turning points, if I would say, in terms of ideological struggles in the West, and it led to this greater revolt against capitalism, and that's when I believe you have the intellectualization, I would say, of the colonial struggle, and I see that as really like the source of this proto-revolutionary language. Jean-Paul Sartre was part of it, for example, Aimé Césaire, Frantz Fanon, all of these guys. If you're today a student and you want to read about, struggles in Africa or Middle East in general, you read these guys because they're presented as these heroes of anti-imperial, struggles, etc. So that's where I just changed a little bit the discourse when everyone is talking about this green-red alliance, but this is a pure Western phenomenon that happened after the Algerian Revolution.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing, and I said this with a podcast with Murtaza Hussain, I think a while ago. I think one thing that people don't understand about some of these third world movements, some of these nationalist third world movements, also is, like so say Palestinian nationalism. Like Palestinians are socially conservative people; they're Muslim, right? But if you look at the origins of Fatah or more explicitly the PFLP, some of these movements were connected to Marxism and leftism. And so there are these connections that I think in terms of red green and in terms of why would a Muslim be a socialist, which again, I will tell you when I was a kid at my masjid, that my parents went to, there were actually a fair number of in the 1980s, fair number of sermons about how you can't be a socialist if you're Muslim. And I was like, okay, I didn't really get it because I was in America and I just we think communism's bad, but I think it was well, I mean, I was a kid, growing up in America. I think that was aimed at some of the people in the audience with hindsight that might have come from, that sort of background of, left-wing, nationalism in Muslim countries. But, I think, Algerian revolution itself is, I mean, the party that led the revolution is still in power in Algeria, correct?
Yeah. It was actually so if you go back and read the history, you get the communists, you get the socialists, and you get the Islamists, and you get the ultra-Islamists, and they were all fighting each other over, what Algeria should be. And of course, it's the guys who got, the pitch of this is anti-imperialism and got some backing who won. And to your point about socialism and Islamism, etc. The thing is, I tried to explain that in the second part of my piece about Islam as a language. Islam is actually tied to law. It's tied to Sharia law. It's very hard to divorce them. If you're an Islamist, you need to make that bitch. And I just didn't see that in Mamdani. What he was doing though, with all these, I don't know, yesterday I think he released this video speaking in Arabic and all of these things, and this appeal to going to the mosques and talking to imams, etc. But it's because if you are an anti-decolonial guy, if you're an anti-imperialist, you are also a materialist, which is why he talks about things like, all the housing prices and all of these things. But materialist in also the sense that you see religion as a tool. A little bit like what the French socialists did with Catholicism in the 19th century. But you see Islam and religion as a tool, and so Islam is part of this greater struggle that is like an oppressed religion, not well understood or whatever, and so you weaponize it to appeal to this like victimhood narrative. And I thought it was the funniest thing ever, because if you saw, I don't know if you saw the polls, but he didn't overwhelmingly win the Muslim vote. I think 50% of people voted for him.
Yeah. There's the no religion category that he was getting 71.
Yeah, and it's very telling, because you would think he would get at least like 70% of the Muslim vote. But he did not, because in Islam itself, there is this elevation of, the merchant, the warrior, the hero. It's a lot in the...
Muhammad was a merchant.
Yes, he's actually a bourgeois. And
he married well.
yeah, and so if you are a Muslim who grew up in a Muslim society, etc., you don't like that victimhood mentality. Oh my God, you are the oppressed, we should revolt. You don't like it. It doesn't appeal to you, and so you might not vote for Mamdani. And I think that it's a bit of a nuance I tried to incorporate, because I wanted to also explain why Trump did so well with the Muslims in the last elections. It's for that reason. It's because they identified him as a hero. The sense of honor and pride is extremely important in Islamic culture. And so the way I think he used Islam might fire back, but and anyway, this is a point on Islam itself, and on the colonial parts, I think that it explains why he's doing so well with the urban, cosmopolitan young man or woman. But it's when you're at university, that's all you hear. That's part of that's a language that is absolutely natural to you, yeah, that's like how I've been analyzing it.
Well, I do want to say something real quick about Zohran Mamdani's class background too. He's from his father is from the Indian minority in Uganda. Asian is what they say. And they tend to be Gujarati. The Khojas are generally merchants, Gujarati merchants. And someone privately messaged me, and apparently knows. Has business in Kenya and Uganda, and Mamdani's extended family, some of them are industrialists, so they're very prosperous. They did really well in capitalism, so it's a little interesting, but not totally unprecedented. Obviously, that he is he's not just bourgeois; he's high bourgeois. Like his background is like very, very well off on his dad's side, although his dad obviously is a college professor, so of more modest means, but. He comes from the elite in that country, and his mother is definitely like the top 0.1% of directors in the world. There's a lot of directors, a lot of people in film. Very few people reach the level of success. The level of success to the point where she can pass up, filming blockbusters. I think she might have passed up. Yeah, she passed up several blockbusters on his advice. So they're obviously well off. I mean, probably like lower upper class is where I would put them. Not like, they don't have like palatial estates, but they have multiple homes in New York City apparently. So that's not accessible even for a lot of the upper middle class of that city. So he's lived a charmed life in a way. And I also think, like, I'm not a big fan of his politics, but he has a natural way about him in a lot of contexts to disarm people. Although there are some videos of him doing the protests and the shouting. He's got a different side of him, right?
Yeah, he's a skilled. When your mom is a filmmaker, you can be sure to be a skilled actor. He has a natural flair for that politics. The political side of things, which is good, and in a sense that it actually helps him, because here's why I actually thought it was important for me to write about this. There is an exhaustion of Democrat talking points. The racial stuff did not make it. The sexual stuff did not make it. The woke stuff did not make it. The ultra health COVID stuff did not make it. But here's the thing. after October 7th, you have this revival of this decolonial discourse that was already amplified by universities since the 60s, really. And so you get a guy who has this exotic side of him. He's not from here, but he is from here, and he speaks a language that most of the people have already incorporated in their minds. And so here is a beautiful opportunity to expand, an agenda that is already made, but to expand it and to get more people involved. And this is why someone like Obama, thinks of him as his natural successor, and that Obama wants to be now more involved. It's something that Obama always dreamed of. Obama is. He's also this product of the decolonial stuff. I mean, Rob Malley, when he was talking about Iran, one of the first things he did, I think it was his thesis or something, he also studied the Algerian Revolution. Obama, when he talks about how he wanted to flirt with girls and that he would talk about Foucault and Derrida and others, he was trying to do that. But Mamdani, because I think his father is a decolonial guy, so his language, the language is so natural to him. He does not need to put all these references, and I think that this is why conservatives are in trouble, because they think it's Islamism, they think it's common, but I think it's something that was cooking for a very long time, and the only response to that, by condemning it, I don't think it will make it. I think that emphasizing precisely that he sees the United States as this evil imperial power, etc., is the only way to win against someone like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're trying to get at is in his biography, he embodies third worldism in a way, right? Like, he doesn't need to articulate it or espouse it. Like, he just his life story and the way he can talk and,
Yeah, it's the thing is, I mean, if we just take a look at the election itself, well, he is very young, so it actually helps him by itself. People might vote for him just because they're sick of others. There is that too, but I think he will be important in the sense that he cracked the code of what the Democrats can use as a language ideologically next. Why? Because I work in foreign policy, so I can see things going in a way. You have China, Russia, and Iran and other actors, putting much more pressure now on the United States. The decolonial stuff is already appealing in Africa and Asia. The Russians amplify it through multipolarity. Someone like Alexander Dugin spent years and years trying to do that. And then you get the Chinese as well. They have their own version of, we want to protect international law, whatever that means. And so Mamdani, he first of all, he provides, I think, a toolkit that explains or puts the United States on a certain level on what is good and what is bad in terms of international relations, but also for domestic usage. Which is why he says what he says about Palestine as being part of this great struggle against imperial evil Israel. So this is how I see it, because I get a lot of friends who tell me about his anti-Semitism and how he's an Islamist, but his anti-Semitism is much more different than whatever they knew before. Yeah. Anyway, that's how I've been.
Well, so I mean, I guess you're talking about Palestine and all that anti-Semitism. In terms of third worldism, multiple people have observed that over the last couple of years, as there's the vibe shift and the woke stuff has disappeared, the gender ideology, the fixation on Black American history, culture, and identity, and DEI, Palestine has kind of, we are all Palestinians now. They're marching in the streets. It's swallowed a lot of the energy and a lot of the issues and causes on the left, right?
Yeah, because it's just like because the left already has an anti-Zionist tradition, and they know the anti-Zionist activism, how to do it, how to proceed, and I think that with Mamdani, I think he instinctively give them just a new way to express it. This anti-imperial language is very, I think attractive. So yeah, that's like that's I think what I think is coming. I felt that I had to write about it because I've just been fighting with some of my friends for a long time, since I think 2022, and my view was, hey guys, I think that I think there's something else that is going to emerge, and it's third worldism. And if you because I was tracking what the Russians do in the Sahel, so if you read about the these new anti-Western guys in Burkina Faso or Niger or Mali, it's very noticeable how close they are to what Mamdani says, and it comes from the same tradition, and because because of the internet, because of how things work through networks, it might reach the United States. It might take a new form, but it's not good to exclude it as a movement that will never take root.
Yeah, I mean, so I can see how I can see how New York City, third worldism, just because of the, he's mobilizing the immigrants. He's mobilizing. There's a New York Times article about how, young Chinese Americans are pro Mamdani, older Chinese Americans are anti Mamdani.
Yeah, I
He's
saw that.
mobilizing, the liberal left energies of the professional managerial class, the NGO. Um, you know, but I do think, a lot of America does not have that sort of diversity. I mean, like, let's say you go to Mississippi, where it's like old stock whites and old stock blacks still, a place like that. How would, you know, third worldism, like, that would not be able to work there, right? It's a very, very, I mean, I feel like it's just electorally a very, very narrow path, even though it's like attractive to some.
Yeah, well, yeah, it proliferates in the cosmopolitan urban areas, with heavy university involvement, because you need years of actually preparing the terrain for something like that. But I can see it in New York, in Chicago, in LA and other places.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, so in terms of, like, real life ramifications, though, so, when you're talking about Islamism, I mean, it's quite clear what's going to happen. And, even in Syria, which is, not like I don't know how to describe it, but, like, there's Islamist influences. Like, state TV now is like kind of promoting Sunni Islam in a way that obviously was not before under the Assad regime, et cetera, et cetera. There's curriculum changes, in the Islamic Revolution and in Iran, women put on hijabs for like 2 generations. Okay, so what is the consequence of Mamdani winning? Like, what does that mean for New York City? Like, what does third worldism mean? Because he is a democratic socialist of America. He does say bad things about billionaires and stuff like that, but he actually cannot do a lot of things that he would like to do, because the New York City mayor's office has like only a finite number of things it can do, right?
yeah, well, the I don't know the domestic side of things. I would be very arrogant to tell you, but there is one thing that I saw as a direct consequence. The first one is the centrality of Palestine in all of this. I don't know if you saw, but there were already discussions about canceling some sort of program between New York University, a university based in New York, with a university based in Israel, as a protest against this, colonial settler, whatever he will, he will frame it as. So there will be a lot of that, a lot of like symbolic, but also real anti-imperialist actions. Um, which will satisfy a lot of his base. The second one is because there were a lot of pressures on, universities, Columbia University, and all of these universities to take action against anti-Semitism and all of these marches for Palestine, etc. He might want to insert himself and be, his savior, their savior. That would be one. On his economic reforms policy, I mean, a lot of it just does not work. I don't see how a lot of what he says works. I mean, you know better than me, but it seems that it's more for quick votes than anything else.
So I mean, I guess like the question that I have then is like let's move the scope more international, because I mean that is your, as we're talking right now, you were you were talking like you were predicting that Al Qaeda would we would be hearing a lot about it in the Sahel, and it looks like what they're taking over Mali now, possibly Al Qaeda offshoot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hilarious. It's actually funny, but since I started working, I've been
I don't know if funny is the right word.
No,
but...
I know it's not funny, but it's just because I was very junior when I just started 3 years ago, and so I was like, oh, guys, I think something very bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're like, no. Anyway, I can find the tweets of people saying I'm delusional, of thinking that there will be a French decline, and I was like, no, I can see it. It's a question of resources.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, the Sahel is very is going to be one of the biggest problems the United States will have to deal with. It's right now a hotspot for jihadists. They are regrouping, they are training, they have a lot more of resources. The Russians, because they are in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, which are the countries that actually needed help against jihadism, the Russians have exacerbated that, and they're doing it on purpose because if you think of how the Russians are putting pressure on Europe, there is the eastern flank, and there's also the eastern front and the southern flank. And so they are pushing on the eastern flank. Yeah, they're pushing on the eastern front, but they need to put pressure on the southern one. And so they do that through like putting pressure on migrants, on jihadism spreading, to overwhelm Europe. It's just a question of strategy. And I think they are going to succeed because Europeans are just not doing anything on this.
Well, I mean, so you have the Gaza movement. Obviously, as we're recording, I mean, basically the war is over. I mean, I think is the ceasefire holding? It seems like it's still holding, roughly. Like there's some breakages, but
yeah,
they're not.
Sorry, I wrote something about this on Trump's neutralization strategy. This is not something I think United States can solve, but it can at least neutralize. At least make sure you open some channels, because whenever the United States wants to talk to Turkey, Saudi Arabia, other Gulf countries, the first things that comes up is Gaza. So I think it's a good move that they found a way to neutralize it so that they can talk about other things.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I mean, Palestine and Gaza, I think, have kind of reinvigorated this third world stuff. I mean, like a generation ago, we had Al Qaeda, and relatively recently we had ISIS, and we're still talking about Al Qaeda now. But a lot of people are saying, not a lot of people. I mean, Noah Smith said this, but other people said this earlier, and I actually said this earlier. The demographics are changing in the core Middle East, in particular, with the aging. And I think, some of the revolutionary energy that you get from the youth, there's just not as many youth, right? So are you thinking that, I'm looking at the fertility rate for Mali right now, it's 5.61, which is incredibly high, compared to the whole rest of the world basically now. Aside from a few places in Africa and maybe Afghanistan, have really crashed, right? So do you think that we will see possibly just like the demographics driving some of these conflicts?
Yeah, yes and no. There's definitely a demographic side of things, but here it's, I think, direct foreign intervention to make it worse. The thing in the Sahel, I mean, I always have this this debate with friends and stuff. Al Qaeda in Sahel and North Africa is very different from Al Qaeda in the Middle East. Al Qaeda in the Sahel and North Africa, they take advantage of ethnic tensions between the south and the north, and therefore it's easier for them to recruit. There's also the anti-Russia component of things. You know, if there's one thing historically accurate is that wherever the Russians go, wherever they go, especially in Muslim countries, whether it's in Afghanistan or other places, they always make terrorism worse because because Al Qaeda, because they're well formed and they have some sort of command and control, they attract all these militants that are anti-Russia, and they get well armed, and so they make things worse. And the problem is how do you fix it? My my pitch is that I do not think that the United States can fix it. In a sense of like direct interventionism, etc. I think this time it's better to work through Morocco, Mauritania, to some extent Algeria, other countries who can do the work, because there is so much anti-Western sentiment. We don't know where the United States stands against Russian mercenaries yet. There is no public statement. It might make things worse in terms of what the administration is trying to do regarding Ukraine. So I think working through allies is the only option here to counter it.
So I mean, back to let's pivot back a little bit to third worldism. Okay, so a lot of it is like rooted in anti-imperialism. So it's like one of the major things. Right? So the European imperialism is sui generis, and so because I understand there's two ways you can talk about imperialism. There's one way you can talk about imperialism, and that's just like substitute for like European power since like 1700 or 1800 or whatever, right? And especially focusing on the 19th century and into the 20th century. And then there's another way, it's generic imperialism, like the Mongols were imperial, the Arab empires were imperial, stuff like that. That is not, the generic way is not the way that these third worlders are talking about at all. So for example, the conquistadors were engaged in imperial, expansion and conquest in central Mexico, but the Aztecs, like, they don't talk about what the conquistadors actually conquered Mexico with indigenous armies because the Aztecs had been such brutal overlords to the other tribes, right?
Yeah.
So that sort of subtlety is like removed because in this third world ideology, what matters is particularly European imperialism. The question that I have for these people, though, is in 1955, I get it, okay? Maybe in 1975, maybe like during the Cold War a little bit, where you had like, two spheres. In 2025, we are entering a situation where about half the world's GDP is in Asia. China is, it's not quite a peer power to the United States, but it's going in that direction.
Yeah.
As far as European imperialism, like Europe, the continent itself, like that's where civilization just went to retire right now. So for me, the rhetoric, the Mamdani style rhetoric, I think he's implicit about it, but his father's very explicit. It seems like a very 20th century thing, post World War II thing. And it's rooted in, European imperial power in the 19th century. We're kind of going past that. Like, do you think that, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to like engage with people where I think that they are stuck in the past, which, like arguably, Islamists like Al Qaeda is stuck in the past as well in terms of creating like a fantastical, anachronistic Islamic paradise that they're going to recreate, right?
Yeah.
So do these third world anti-imperialists think that they're going to create, African socialism like they tried to create Ghana? I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I don't think they try to recreate anything. I think what they try to do is to have necessary justifications for policies. For example, it's actually a lot of guilt tripping. Oh, you did this, you are evil, your country did this, United States is so bad, and therefore we need to give thousands and thousands of dollars to an NGO who will do absolutely nothing about whatever happens in Sahel, for example. That's the whole goal. And you can see that with like climate change, for example. The Europeans were the evil imperialists, and they are the ones who created this pollution, whatever is happening, in Africa, and therefore they need to give infinite money to these countries. Not taking into consideration the fact that a lot of these countries have structural problems. They do not do any reforms. A lot of these things. So I think that they're not trying to recreate. I think they're trying to build up the arguments for the colonial the colonial policies, really. And they're very explicit about it. They are. They explicitly say it. They want to discriminate. They want to give. They want to give more to like all these causes that do not benefit the United States, and I think this is where it gets really dangerous, I think.
I do have to say, though, in terms of danger, as you're describing it, as we're unpacking like what this is, it's actually less frightening than communism or Islamism, because
In
particular communism, though these are global ideologies that have a positive totalitarian, and I don't mean it just in a regime, but just like a totalistic vision
Yeah.
of how society is supposed to organize. Islamism, the modern form of Islamism is kind of similar, although it's not as, it's going to sound weird for people, but like arguably it's not as extreme because, Sharia law is, which is, okay, Sharia means law, so I just said law, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sharia, it has like normal family life, it has a structure, right? But it has an idea of the way the world should be. It seems like the way you're describing it, Third-Worldism is, it's just like, the NGO shall inherit. I don't know. I mean, it's not as...
But it's also like very revanchist, though. And so you have to dismantle a lot of what you think are the institutions of the oppressors, and all of these things. I don't think it has been tried yet in the United States. We don't know where it can lead to. I know, however, that as it has been tried in Britain and to an extent a lot more in Canada, you can see what type of society it produces. Totally, I mean, they preach about equality, etc., but it's actually it's just not. So this is where I think it's very okay. Here's what I think is actually much more scary. What I think is scary, really, is that the United States is entering and is already in a real Cold War with China, with Russia, with Iran, and others. A lot of these countries, regarding Taiwan, also what happens in the Red Sea, through the Houthis, Ukraine, and other things, all what they're doing is actually eroding U.S. military power. They are doing it by alienating U.S. allies, by making sure Europe stays weak, by making sure that Gulf countries get more of Chinese tech infrastructure than U.S. tech infrastructure. And so you have the United States entering this very dangerous phase in international relations. And you have domestic U.S. politics and politicians explaining to you, don't worry, we don't need any of this. United States is a global, evil power. We have to just submit. We have to give all of our supply chains. You have to let China do whatever it wants, etc., etc. And you create domestically this huge confusion when you actually need resolve. And this is where I think Mamdani and a lot of the guys who are backing him are dangerous. I think it's just the phase we're entering, as I see it, is very it's very bad, I think. But I might be wrong. Maybe someone will emerge, talk about American dynamism, but I don't see that yet.
Well, I mean, I think one thing about Mamdani and this third world stuff, it seems like it could be very, very easily. I think you said this actually in your pieces. It could be very easily manipulated by non-Western powers, right? Like China and Russia.
Yeah, there's different types of warfare. there's information warfare and asymmetric warfare. And when you have someone telling you, your ancestors were evil, a lot of what you built for the world was evil, you are an imperial power, you must give it up. Well, the Chinese and the Russians are glad to hear that, because they actually just convinced you that you don't deserve your success and you should just totally submit. And I think it's a recipe for disaster, I think. And this is what I'm afraid of, that conservatives don't see that, and they think that entering the frames that Mamdani already put together, which is Israel, Palestine, etc., they're going to win. But actually, no, these are traps. The more you talk about it, the more you amplify him, because in his own framework, you are evil. And I think this is where I think a lot of conservatives are missing.
Well, I mean, so do you think? I mean, I haven't done a deep dive. Look, I don't live in New York City. New York City is obviously, the most important city in the United States. With all due respect to, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and DC, probably. Sorry, Chicago. Just no one cares about the Midwest. Okay, I'm gonna get in trouble for that, but you know what I'm saying. So it's obviously important, and we're all paying attention. Do you think that Mamdani? It's really hard to get inside of someone's brain, and he seems like a very performative protean figure. But do you think that the face he's putting to the fore right now is deceptive? That actually, I mean, I have a friend who says, and this is hearsay, who says that they have friends who went to school with Mamdani, and that growing up, as a teenager, he was very anti-American, and it seemed like he just didn't like white people, that sort of thing. Which is, again, this is a very upper middle class, upper class, non-white, immigrant, children of immigrants. There's a type of person like this, and I just wonder, is that the real Mamdani, or is this the real I mean, what are we gonna get here? He's already, kind of pivoted a little bit to talk about if he gets elected, Muslims are now full citizens of New York and stuff like that, which is okay, what the hell is that? Okay, that was weird. So it seems like he's pivoting a little to almost as if he won and now he can show his true colors. I don't know. I wonder about that about him.
Yeah, I don't know. Showing his true colors in what way? To be explicit about what he hates?
Well, he's talking about the free buses and these socialized grocery stores and all this stuff, and he cares about all New Yorkers, but I mean, he during the Black Lives but during the peak of wokeness, there's a lot of tweets that show that he just kind of didn't like the founding stock of America and its history and its people and stuff like that. He's not saying that right now too much.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it will definitely show up. These are things. These sensibilities are very hard to hide on the long run. They always manifest themselves, in the most subtle way. And he will, of course, be very careful, because now that Obama elevated him as the future of, the Democratic Party and what the Democratic Party should represent, I'm pretty sure he will, moderate rhetorically, and he will be coached to do so, because at the end of the day, when you're a militant, the goal is policy. And so what he will do will definitely match what he thinks. And I think, it's in a way I'm saying, yeah, let's wait, but I also think I don't think he will change his mind at all. I mean, that's what.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very. It's true he tries to hide it, but he's not showing any remorse whatsoever for what he said.
Yeah. There's no there's no apology tour. He is just kind of saying, I've changed my mind on certain things, or he just will not address or talk about other things, right? Okay, so your prediction, again, you're into predictions, as you said. Your prediction is he might be the first of a new crop of executives in these big cosmopolitan cities that we have, promoting these sorts of ideas.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he has the he has the perfect, how Max Weber, he always tells you, like, there are different ways to be charismatic, and no, there are different ways to rule, and the best way is actually to be charismatic, because you just don't have to think about your ideas. And Mamdani is actually very charismatic, and he's good at presenting things. He has this exotic look as well, the exotic way of being, that he's just that he's not from here, but he's also from here, and he can tell you how to be better. This is something Obama tried to do, and he did not succeed, I think. And so this perfect melange between, the being anti-US but not saying it, and offering a new way for great redemption through Third-Worldism and espousal of all these anti-imperial ideas. I think I'm pretty sure that he is the next model. And I say that because I spoke to some to some people, Democrats, and I was telling them, hey, I think Mamdani is just, his policies, I don't think they work. Even in theory they don't work. And they were like, no, he is part of this new generation that we should nurture, and schools and universities have been talking about this for a long time. And I think, this is it's how I see it coming in the next few years.
I think the Obama comparison to Obama is interesting because I guess explicitly we should just say this, but if you look at their backgrounds, it's obvious they're both third culture kids. They don't they're part of the global class whose like national identity is a bit fluid and contextual.
Yeah,
And,
exactly. Yeah, I was reading this guy. His name is Paul Nizan, and he's a communist, and he wrote something called the Watchdogs. It's the Watchdogs, Philosophers and the Established Order. And Paul Nizan, hardcore communist, hates Sartre, because Sartre was this cosmopolitan new communist slash great man who wants to unify everyone. And Paul Nizan, like, he literally, in his book, he takes a whole paragraph of Marx, where Marx actually explains how the cosmopolitan is this universalist guy who only cares about capital. Anyway, it's just how even Marx would have opposed it, but I guess it works in politics. So
yeah. Well, I guess we are recording before the election, and then I'm going to be posting after the election. I guess if Cuomo wins, like maybe I don't know. I'll post it just for interest because it's funny. I don't know. I just I'm like 95% sure that Mamdani is going to win. Actually, I don't know what the prediction markets are now, but it looks like he's gaining steam actually. From what I remember. So it looks like he is definitely the future. Prediction markets. It looks like 91 cents for Mamdani, 11 cents for Cuomo, 2 for Silwa, 1 for Adams, who's not running anymore. So that stuff is always weird to me. But yeah, like he's an overwhelming favorite.
I have a question for you. Why do you think
Yeah.
Slewa is Sliwa?
Yeah.
Why is he running?
What I heard, and I think this is plausible because so basically he's getting city matching funds. And he might have to return those if he quits. His current wife, and a lot of his friends and family are on the campaign payroll right now. So it's money. Actually, this is an obscure fact, but in 1980, it was like, wasn't it Anderson? There were three. Actually, it was Carter versus Reagan, but there was also a third party candidate, Anderson. And he was basically a liberal Republican, moderate to liberal Republican. The third party candidate, I don't necessarily know if he turned the election to Reagan, but he definitely helped because just basically anti-incumbent people just voted for Anderson. Okay, and like pulled away from Carter. It later came out after I think Anderson died that it was pretty clear from his correspondence he kind of did want to pull out when he realized that he wasn't gonna, win, and maybe was gonna like result in the election of Reagan, who disliked more or something. But he would have had to return all of those funds, I guess the matching funds, and he didn't have the money. And so he didn't want to spend, I think, like Hillary Clinton, like there's other politicians who've had to spend many years paying back the debt from their campaign. Like they go to fundraisers and they, have to pay and like they do it for years and years, and he didn't want to do that. So, like these sorts of like obscure personal reasons for running and for like political action, can have like really weird effects on the rest of society, right?
Yeah, it's. I wish I was thinking. I wish I could like advise someone, but on like how to win against these guys. But I think it will get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Do you think I don't know. I don't follow it that much, but it seems that Republicans don't have an answer to this emerging movement.
I think part of the issue is like someone put this on social media, and I think it's true. The Republican answer to third worldism is also third worldism. It's just chud.
It's very
chud third
sad.
worldism.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Yeah. So I will tell you, like, being like on the right, I think like, kind of like conscious of it and active for like I think almost your whole life probably. But 30 years ago, Republicans were like, kind of the bootstrap, like, you lift yourselves up party.
Mm.
And it would be a situation where if someone complained, you'd just be like, just work harder. You just gotta work, like that was kind of like the Republican instinct. Today it's not like that at all. There's a lot of people who are, on the right who believe that they are victims,
Yeah.
And so, and like I'm not like taking a pro or anti position on this, but
No,
the
I
immigration
understand. Yeah.
the immigration stuff, it's very interesting to me that like 20 years ago, 15 years ago, the Republicans would be like, well, yeah, like whatever, just like, you can compete. Like if you can't compete, you can't compete, but like, you shouldn't worry about immigration because of competition. But today, like, a lot of the anti-immigration people, the more populist ones, not like Mark Krikorian or something who's had like long-term reasons for various reasons. It's just like they're like, oh well, they're taking our jobs, like very like very like South Park, like they're taking our jobs and like we can't like, we can't make a paycheck. And that is kind of I'm put upon, I'm oppressed by the structures and the systems of the world. That was not a very, very common view or common like sentiment on the right, even like 10 or 15 years ago. And now it's very, very common. There's a lot of people that have that attitude, and maybe this is what populism is, what did you think they were, like vibes and essays?
Yeah, the vibes and essays. Yeah, it's yeah, because what I see is that it's true that third-worldism can actually expand and be fruitful and multiply in the United States, because because in the United States because of how it is structured, you can't. It's very easy to have some sort of ideology that captures everyone. But also it can easily be it's really like the free market thing. Like you can get a lot of competition, and so it's just a matter of identifying what Mamdani is and the victimhood thing and offering another platform. But if everyone is going to play the victim, you're also saying that America is evil. It's just it implies that.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the irony of like some of this stuff, because like the woke people obviously said America is evil, right?
Yeah.
But there are some people on the far right who basically think America is evil for different reasons, because America is controlled by the Jews. Do you see what I'm saying? So they're actually very similar in that way, where they think America is like capitalistic, it's run by the Jews, or run by these global homo elites and these sorts of things. They become anti-American because they think their people are being oppressed by this government, this occupational government. So what I have told people is the structure of the resentment is very similar, and I think it's like showing common human nature. Like it's very, very convenient to never like blame yourself and to blame others. Like you are not responsible for your lot in life. It is the whole structure of the system, and you need to unpack and destroy the system. And this is traditionally explicitly a left-wing view, I think, in this country, but now it's also become a right-wing view. Anti-establishmentarianism, anti-establishment, sentiment, anti-institutionalism is a big deal. And I don't necessarily disagree with all of it. Obviously, I think 2008 financial crisis really turned off a lot of people on our elites. That's just a fundamental truth. They did engage in predatory capitalism, and they did socialize their mistakes. That's just a fact. And that gave succor to Occupy and those movements. But, spinning out of Occupy, also MAGA and the right-wing movements came too,
Yeah, it's very dangerous.
We live, all I gotta say is as we close out, we live in interesting times.
Yes, it is. Oh my God, it's so funny. Before I just recorded with you, I saw that there's the Marx, Engels, Lenin, Stalin, Mao Institute celebrating the Great October Revolution on the space, and I was like, oh my God. And then I click on it and I found out all of them are Americans, and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so part of it is, this is you can see it in smaller issues. Memory is fading. Younger generations don't remember.
Yes, it is a real problem. I spoke yesterday to a friend of mine. He's a professor, and he just told me, the students don't listen to a lot of music. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he said, "Yeah, they don't have their favorite bands. They don't watch a lot of movies. They don't have their favorite, their register is very small, and so their references are based on what is trending on TikTok. They have no idea what happened in World War I or World War II. They know what they should feel about it. They don't know what happened though. I think it's a recipe for disaster, quite honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's even
maybe I'm too pessimistic, but...
No, I don't know. No, I've seen it. You know what? I'm going to give the example of the crime wave. I'm old enough to remember. I was a little kid, but I'm old enough to remember the crime wave that started in the late 60s that went into the early 1990s. And so crime was just something that we would think about in a way that we do not today. Okay, and then so you had these decarceral movements and basically soft on crime policies that came back around 2020, the Soros DAs and that sort of thing. We'd only been low crime for about 25 years at that point, or the crime had faded away for about 25 years. But that's all it took. After 25 years, people were like, oh, let's get rid of bail and do all these things, right? And what did we see? We saw a spike, around 2020. We saw the murder spike. A lot of that was depolicing, abolish the police, all of these things. But, there's other things when it comes to robberies where, I mean, it's not as bad as it was before, partly because our age structure in our society mitigates against that. But the point is, crime was actually a solved problem, and we decided to unsolve it, just because, frankly, millennials did not remember the previous period. And so they thought, oh, well, it's different now. It's not different, structurally the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's
Well, with that resounding note of non-optimism, but hey, keep track of Zeneb's social media, because she'll be making predictions, and they might be dark predictions, but hey, maybe make some money in the prediction markets off it, assuming the prediction markets are still around.
I should get on it. I'm not on it. I should get on it.
Yeah, you should get on prediction markets and get some moolah, get some money, and put the fist of the capitalist against these third world limousine liberals, right?
Yeah, it's funny, but the best political scientists and international affairs experts are the ones who make the worst predictions, and they're the most popular ones.
Yes.
So.
Well, they give the people what they want. People don't want the truth. They just want to hear what they want to hear.
Yeah.
That's the irony, right? Unfortunately. So that's why you have to use, that's why, that's why the best prediction people are in finance, because in finance, it doesn't matter what the people want. It's just about the money, you know?
I agree with that. I agree.
So, all right. I will see you online. And, hopefully New York survives the Mamdani era. And check for Zeneb's predictions.
Yeah. Thank you, Razib. Pleasure speaking with you.
this podcast for kids? This